Okay, let's go. I just put a pizza in the oven. That shit takes 12 minutes. It's gonna go bing in 12 minutes. If you can hear that tick tock, tick tock, I don't know. But when it goes ding, then we're gonna be finished there, hopefully. So I just wanted to talk about some shit. I was brought up Mormon. I was born into that church. I had stopped going to the church when I was about 12 years old. I had, I was a kid who questioned a lot of stuff. I was always into like wanting to understand how things fit together and their explanations. Not when I was super young, but they were uncomfortable for me. I remember when I was like 8 or 9, and my dad, I was on the way to school, and we arrived early, and we stopped, and we were talking about this kind of stuff, and I was asking something about how would it not be possible for like why we don't understand God or whatever, and he kept bees, and he was like, well, I keep bees, and the bees obviously don't understand us, right? The bees have no idea what I'm up to, what my motives are. Um, they might have some, you know, feeling about this interaction that happens, like this weird interaction that happens when the hand comes in or whatever else. They might uh, have some kind of conception of that. But I mean, that didn't really go for me because I kind of felt like, well, bees don't know what the fuck's going on. But he was trying to say that there's levels, and so maybe these are the levels, right? Like these ideas that a super intelligence would be completely unrecognizable. It would just maybe look like a rock or even a planet. Like maybe that's what a super intelligence would look like, right? So but this is like I'm like not in infant school at this time, not even in junior school. So like under 8 years old, I think, right? You were 8 till 12 in juniors. So I don't know, man. Anyway, when I was around 12, I was like, I don't want to go anymore, and maybe 13, and they made me still go a little bit, I think, but not too much. Like they were like, yeah, you have to go, and then I just wouldn't on this when a Sunday came. My parents I very quickly lost all respect for them as like authorities because they would just say silly things all the time. They were inconsistent, and dude, look, if you can't out logic a fucking 13-year-old, anyway. So I saw like more than most people of the church because by that age, I mean, because my parents they got married, a normal marriage, and then you have the second marriage when you're a Mormon. You go to the temple, and so they didn't have the temple marriage before we were born, myself and my sister, and so if they did, we would be automatically sealed to them. And then because they didn't, we weren't. And so then when they did go and have the temple seal in between them two, they needed to also have a separate seal in with me and my sister so that she's 2 years older than me, so that we could be sealed to them for eternity. That's what they believe, right? And so how old was I? Like, I don't know. I think you have to be at least 8 or some shit. I've definitely been baptized. I think they baptize you when you're 8. So we did that. And so because of that, I kind of thought I knew most of the stuff about Mormonism. When I've seen like videos and clips and shit, and they're like, oh, look at what happens inside the temple. I've always thought, yeah, I know what happens inside the temple. I was in there. I went through some of the stuff, and I kind of thought that was it. I kind of really thought that I'd seen it all, more or less. And then recently, I was watching some videos about Jehovah's Witnesses. Very cool channel called XJW Panda Watch, Panda Tower, XJW Panda Tower. It's a cool video. That it's a young kid, like his native language is Spanish by the sounds of it, and he talks about like the Jehovah's Witness cartoons, and it's a good show. It's fun, man. He's just a kid though, so he's not like breaking any grounds with teleological arguments or stuff like this. Anyway, I was watching those, and because I was watching those, they started putting up like ones for the Mormon stuff, and then one came up which was like a secret video or something, and they were wearing some clothes that I mean I'd seen temple garments before, but I'd never seen the shawl thing. Like they put this green shawl thing here that's supposed to represent the leaves, like Adam and Eve or whatever, and then these hats and a few extra bits and pieces that I hadn't seen before. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. Let me watch that. And what they showed me that really has kind of been in my head for the last few days is that there's a process called the washing and anointing, which I'd heard of it, but I didn't know what actually happened in the washing and anointing. So in the washing and anointing, basically you go into this, like, it's a square room and it's in four parts. So you come in here and it's the waiting room, the washing room, the anointing room, and then the naming room, I guess. So you go into the waiting room, you wait, because it's just like a factory, man. So it's like bang, 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 bang all day long. So you come into the waiting room, then you go into the next room, the washing room, and at this point you're going to be wearing like temple underwear, which are like long shorts and a t-shirt. I think now they've changed it slightly, but long shorts and a t-shirt, all white, and some kind of white shawl over you. And at the time when my parents went through it, which they changed it now, but at the time when they went through it, somebody would literally like wash you, as in put water here and here above your chest, here around your stomach, and like I think above your knees. 8 places on your body is what I understood from the video, if I remembered it right. And then the next room is the anointing, where they put a little oil on your head and hold their hands above your head and stuff, and hands on the shoulder of another guy or 3 guys in a circle or whatever around you. And they say a special kind of enchantment or prayer or spell, magic spell, right? And I was aware of that kind of stuff. I'd had that kind of stuff done to me before when I was ill as a boy. The leaders of the church, the bishop, and my dad, who was one of the assistant bishops or whatever, they have a name for it. Anyway, they would do it to supposed to help you get well quicker if you have a flu or something. It felt nice. It certainly felt nice. It felt like these people love and care about me, and they're trying to do something to make me feel better. You would definitely feel the energy of that. That was always nice when you're in those situations. Except sometimes I knew that like one of the guys in the circle like smoked or drank or something. There was all these rumors about people, and you're like, well, then technically he doesn't have the Melchizedek priesthood, the power to do that. Like even though he officially has it or administratively has it, obviously he wouldn't really have it if he was breaking the rules. So that was anyway. And then in the last room, which I definitely didn't know about, they rename you. They give you a new name, like your name for being in heaven with or something. And maybe they tell people now, but I don't know. They used to hide it from people, certainly, that how they name you when you get into that room is they have a list of like 31 names for each day of the month. And then if you're in there on the 5th and the name for the 5th is like Ada, then your name will be Ada and everyone's name will be Ada. But don't worry about it, because you're not allowed to tell anybody your name ever. You can only tell your husband if you're a woman when you later get married or if you're already married. But he can't tell anybody your name, and he cannot tell you his name. So that's the whole process in a nutshell. And my mother, so this is some mystery school bullshit basically, because it involves, the next thing they do is like these handshakes. They do like a whole series of Masonic handshakes and recite weird names and enchantments and stuff. And they go up to a curtain where a hand comes through who is representative of the Lord in this. And you say, Lord, tell me this. And the Lord tells you things through this hole. And you put your hand and you do these shakes. And he said, what is this? What's this handshake called? And you have to tell him. And this is all the stuff. And then they pull you through into this other room where more shit happens, basically. But this is like classic mystery school nonsense. It's called busy work. It's like, oh, in the Three Amigos, if you've seen that movie, they have to like do this enchantment near the burning bush and spin around 3 times and shoot up in the air and say a magic thing. But then he like shoots lazily to the side, and there's supposed to be an invisible man appear, but he like shoots the invisible man because he shoots lazily. Or in Monty Python, the Holy Grail, oh, you got to answer these questions to cross my bridge, or I will cast you into the whatever it is. Or in the Army of Darkness, when he has the 3 words like Vactu, I can't remember it now, but neither does he. That's the point in the movie. I just watched this film again recently, but in Spanish. Vactu Naratai Nectu or algo, something like this. And then when he gets there, he's like, yeah, I got it, I got the words. And then when he gets there to take the book, he's supposed to repeat the words, And he's like, Vashu, the ragtime. Okay, I said the words. Take the book. But it's just stupid shit. It's just this idea of, when you cross the river to get to the fucking heaven, the forever land, there will be a half crocodile beast man, and he will ask you the questions three, and you must give him these special answers in order to enter. It's busy work. Just things to occupy yourself with. These are the things that are going to please the gods to let you into eternal heaven somehow, like handshakes and fucking poems, riddles. It's crazy. Oh, Bing. So that's going to take, I'm going to let it sit for 3 minutes. I'm going to try and finish this shit up. I'm never going to finish this shit up in the amount of time I've set myself, but here we go. So they also, at the time my mother and father went through it, do a blood oath. So part of it is you symbolically swipe your hand here and here and here to say, I'll kill myself if I ever reveal the secrets from in here, or if I become an apostate or whatever, if I preach against the church. So it's kind of more of a promise to the church than to God, this blood promise. And so I know that so this is some mystery school shit as well, because on the outside, in the outer circle of the church, you're told repeatedly and very strongly that Masonic shit is evil, signs and symbols are bad and wrong, and you should never do them. All this numerology shit is just part of the devil, and that if you ever see this, if people ever try and show you this kind of stuff, that it's always the devil. And then they make you promise that you'll kill yourself if you go against or the inner teachings just a few minutes before they tell you what the inner teachings are, but before they tell you, and after you have already been a member of the church for 6-7 years, and you have given 10% of all your earnings to the church, pre-tax, for all that time, and been totally devoted to it. So you're in, you're deeply in at this point, and then they say, hey, you need to promise that you'll kill yourself if you ever divulge this information or go against it or apostatize or whatever. And that they do that just before telling you that, oh yeah, the shit that on the outer circle we said was evil and the devil's work, that's what we do on the inner circle. But we're not the devils. We told you that anyone who ever tried to trick you into this kind of shit would be the devil, but not us. It's that the reason their things are similar to our things is because they copied them and bastardized them. But this is the true way of doing it. So that's kind of how they get you up to that point. And so, you're going to feel some betrayal there. And definitely, in the case of my mother, she would not have liked to have been naked and have people touch her and look at her who she doesn't know. I know her well enough to know that. That would have been extremely uncomfortable for her. She would have felt violated. And she would have felt betrayed as well by, the fact that no one warned her. Or maybe she heard some whispers around the church. Maybe some people were like, look, I'll tell you a little bit about what's going to happen, because she was probably demonstrating that she was quite afraid of it. So I can imagine that some of the other women might have just gone, oh, look, I'll tell you a little bit. I'm not telling you anything, but and people talk around you while you're there. And if you're paying attention, you pick up on things and you go, oh, okay, they do that, do they? So I guess she had some kind of idea of what would happen, but not completely. So definitely would have felt violated, even if she knew that would happen before she went in there, and even if she agreed to go in there, because the benefits she believes are going to be worth the violation, she still would have felt violated in doing it. And definitely betrayal, because it's completely contrary to what you were taught on the outside. You're now taught this completely other stuff. And so that betrayal, if you're a convert, right? If you're a convert, that betrayal is by other, fucking random humans who you don't know. And also that betrayal is usually you have an objective, a personal objective that's very, very, very strong. That's why you're a convert, right? That's why you need eternal salvation, because you've done something really horrific, or you need eternal rest. You need a perfect restoration because you have some kind of crippling disability or something wrong with you. In the case of my father, I assume it's the first one, that he's done some evil shit that he wants to be cleansed of. And in the case of my mother, it's pretty obvious that because when she was a little girl, she lost her eye in a maybe accident. I wasn't there, I don't know too much about it, but she lost one of her eyes, and by reports, was not well taken care of by her parents, like before, during, or after that, without going into detail. But so for her, that is a singularity. Like even before finding out this stuff about what happens in the temple, I had some conversations with her in the past where, she would. I don't remember how exactly the conversation came up, but there was something where she was expressing that if she could go back to that moment and change it, she would, even if that meant that obviously then there's no way she would have joined the church. There's no way she would have met my dad. There's no way that me and my sister would have been born. And she wouldn't have had this life that she had. She would have had a completely different life, which could have been better or worse in so many different ways, right? But she was just completely too willing to roll the dice on another random life, with just changing one thing. Just like, hey, go back to that point, make that thing not happen to me, that singularity moment not happen to me. I'm not going to lose my eye, and then let the chips fall where they may. But obviously, that 100% would mean that doesn't go to the church, doesn't mean my dad, doesn't get married to him and have me and my sister as her children. So she's quite happy to get rid of us in that sense, which I didn't really understand because, maybe because nothing ever that bad happened to me, right? There's not like a singularity point where I would go back to. And also, I kind of look at things in this way of, my life is it's not like the most perfect. I didn't fucking knock it out of the park or anything. And there's things that I want to get done, and hopefully I'll get them done. And I haven't got them done yet, so that's how I feel about my life. But I wouldn't just go back to any specific moment and say change that one thing, because of the domino effect of not knowing where I would then end up, and having enough respect for the position that I'm currently in to be like, of all the other positions I would ever be in, like even with my parents and growing up in the church and all this other shit, I wouldn't roll the dice and be born to other parents. It was pretty good. Like I was well taken care of. I was well fed. There was love in the house. Okay, they were trying to pull me into this weird cult, but you know, you can't have everything. So my mum definitely would have felt violation and betrayal, but she had a big reason to do that. She had this singularity. Dude, it was weird. Like she was so weird about it. I never knew about the eye until I was much older, and then there was something was being said by adults around me one day, and I was like, wait a minute, oh, there was a clue there. Something's going on. Everyone in the room knows something I don't know, and so I asked her about like what the fuck was that later on, and she was like, oh, I'll tell you, I lost my eye, blah blah blah, and but before then, like I remember one time I was freaking out because I had this like geometric pattern on the ceiling of my bedroom, which I totally hated because you do that thing with your eyes where you just like offset them and then you have like more fingers or whatever. And I would do that and it would like offset this geometric pattern and it would go all 3D and it would just weird me out. I didn't like it at all. I would much rather have like a random non-pattern up there, which later I did because when my room got decorated, I was like, please put something random up there and not geometric. And so that shit used to freak me out. And I remember one day when I was quite young, trying to tell my mum about it, and I was like, this thing happens sometimes when I look at stuff where, like when you look at your hand and then you have like your eyes detune and they kind of look in a different way and you have like more fingers. And she was like, no, and she seemed weird in the moment if I remember it right, but I could be remembering memories, right? And she kind of, as I remember it, she was odd in the moment. She was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about, and then kind of left. And then maybe I encountered her crying later on the same day, um, not understanding anything about it or the connection between those two things, probably. But the problem there was that could have driven me crazy. Like I was worried that there was something wrong with my brain or my eyes. That why can I see extra fingers, or why do I see these weird geometric like patterns? Why does it go 3D on the ceiling there? And I was asking for those kind of reasons, like, hey, am my eyes broken? Is doing this a damage? Should I not be doing this? Because I can choose to do it. And then she said it just doesn't happen to me, and kind of left it really odd. And I could have then thought, oh my God, there's something wrong with me, and blah blah blah. She could have said, "Ask your dad." And the other thing, do you not remember what it used to be like? You had two eyes for a long time when you were younger, so come on. But yeah, she would. It was such a singularity point for her in her life that anything mentioning to do with eyes, she would just be like, "Oh, me," I guess. And understandable. I'm not saying it's not traumatic or anything. It's terribly traumatic for her. But you have a son here, and he was worried that his brain is broken, and you made him think that maybe it was. Yeah, so there was a few weird events like that when I was a kid related to her eye, but I never really cottoned on. I didn't pay attention to those kind of things. I love people, and then I liked this person, and it wasn't like, I never knew if someone was wearing a wig. People were like, that guy wears a wig, and I was like, how do you, why are you paying so much attention to how people's hair moves or something? I didn't. Anyway, uh, so she had this singularity and she had a reason, like a motivation to go through the betrayal and violation. And, because of this story that of when she said that she would go back in time and not and change that and then not have us in her life at all, she's also then willing to sacrifice us in various ways. And this was true again with the church thing because they were bringing us up to go through this process eventually. They took out the blood thing, but they didn't know that. They were bringing us up as their children to eventually go prepare us to want to, like, to be obsessed with, to be invested in, uh, and true believers of this church enough such that we would let the church completely betray us and violate us by touching our naked bodies without warning us and before, making us do a death promise, a blood promise to things that we don't even know what they are, and by completely switching the code from the outer school to the inner school of what's fucking acceptable and what's evil. And in our case, as her children, we're just like sacrificial in that, like, the betrayal and the violation is by our parents, and we don't have a motive. It's her motive, right? I was about to be betrayed and violated for her eye because she wanted her eye in the future when she's dead. She wants to get her eye back. And so that was enough for her to not only put herself through what she felt like it was violation and betrayal, but to send her children through there as well, who she would happily, go back in time and turn a different corner and not have us for this thing. And, it's tough because it must have really had a huge, terrible effect on her psychologically. And her parents, by all accounts, I don't know, but by all accounts, and she's a very believable person, um, were not were not good. Didn't help deal with that situation, and just kind of left her to be this, like, really timid, um, it's like a super timid girl basically, and then a super timid woman who I don't know what she thought her life was going to end up being like. But then, knock 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 on the door. She was a big Elvis fan, and knock knock knock, young American boys, right, giving her attention and fucking everyone being nice and loving and cuddling. Her family wasn't loving and cuddling. They didn't give her that kind of love and attention. So they're love bombing, some financial support probably, and then has the grand opportunity, I guess, for her to meet my father, who, for all of his failings, was incredibly loving and caring towards her and wanted to, create a world for her, which he did. He created a world for her, despite his other shortcomings. So that's it, really. I just kind of wanted to talk about that, and the main reasons were that feeling now like I didn't go through any of that shit, and I left and whatever else, so I didn't get to that point. But it is interesting to just kind of think about how my parents were, and my mum especially, was like setting me up for this strange violation and betrayal thing, and that we were lied to the whole time. We were lied to by our parents, including, Like my mum has this other name. It's weird, right? So like your mum has a name and then she doesn't tell you it because it's like more important than her relationship with the church, her relationship with, I guess she would say God and Heavenly Father and Jesus and whatever. But um, this thing that she convinced herself to be satisfied by because they were offering exactly what uh, she needed and at a price that she was willing to pay, which was, like don't drink and don't. So she never did any of that shit much anyway, from what I know. Um, just basically keep living your life more or less the way you've been living it already. You're already like a good Mormon girl, pretty much, before you were a Mormon, and just keep doing that. Here, look, we've hooked you up with a wonderful husband who's going to take care of you and love you and try and give you everything that you need and want in life. All you have to do is let us betray and violate you, and let us betray and violate your children, and let us come between you and your children. So yeah, it feels weird. I don't know, like I'm not a kid, so um, it's not like it's affected me emotionally so much. It's more just that looking back over my life, you can kind of go, oh yeah, that's maybe why I thought these things or why I thought those things. And I'll give you an example. So I like to play with paranoid scenarios. I like to think up paranoid scenarios and fuck with them in my head. And I've used them as very powerful things as well in the past. But like example would be, what if a certain percentage of everybody can communicate telepathically? How would you know if you weren't one of those people, right? I'm a philosopher, so this kind of stuff I like to play with this shit. But that would be one when I used to get stoned a lot in uni. I would be like, right, okay, what if like 5 of the 7 people in this room can all communicate telepathically, but there's no reason for them to ever let on or ever signal it because they would just go, all right. And if I don't go, yeah, I'm all right, then they go, oh, fucking Lee can't do it. And so they just communicate telepathically amongst themselves. And I would tell my other friends who would like stoners with me, I would be like, oh, check this out. This is a fun game to play. And they would be like, whoa, I avoid going into those paranoid situations because they would like take over their mind and take them down into a place where they really believed it. Whereas for me, they were just like, oh yeah, let's play with this idea. Let's play with this idea. But in the end, maybe some of the reason why I've always kind of played with those ideas is because that was happening to me when I was a child with the church. There was, all the people in the church, and of them, none of the children, maybe some of the children knew more than others, a little bit more than others, because maybe their parents were a little bit more loose-lipped than other parents, right? And then some of the parents had not been to the temple, some of the adults had not been, and others had. And so amongst them, the ones who had would like communicate with each other's. Maybe they would do handshakes right in front of me and I wouldn't even know about it, right? Just to let the other one know. I don't think you're allowed to do that, actually. I don't think they're allowed to do handshakes outside of the church. But there would be like looks and words and comments and things that you would not really understand what was going on around you. And I'm not saying that I knew or noticed any of this at the time. What I'm saying is that was obviously happening. That's what happens. That's how people, when they have secrets, that's what they do. And others didn't. And so there was like these 2 levels of knowledge. It was almost as if, hey, there's a group here that are telepathic and the other group that are not, because they share some kind of unspoken communication, unspoken shared experiences that they can communicate about in ways that everyone around them would be unaware of it. So exactly the same as telepathy. Like a good version of that is like when I decided a few years ago, I'm going to stop drinking now. One of the things that I did was I decided that all the people in the local store were rooting for me. That like if I went in and like bought beer early on a Sunday morning, like hair of the dogs I'd been drinking on a Saturday night, that they would, when I left, they would all go into the fucking back room, the staff room, whatever, and be like, oh, Lee came in this morning. Did you see what he bought alcohol? Man, I hope that he doesn't do that. He has so much potential, and and I would just use that like fake paranoid scenario as fuel to um, help me to stop drinking, because I would be like, I don't want to, I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want them to, like the idea that your like dead ancestors are watching you, and you're like, okay, let me behave myself then, right? If my dead ancestors are watching me, or let me try and do better. If these 3 or 4 people who work in Dia are actually angels here to like watch over me or something. Um, and obviously, I know it's not true. That would be crazy. But it's just a fun, paranoid thing to play with that you could actually use to your advantage if you want. But yeah, learning all this stuff about the anointment process, the feelings of betrayal and violation, and the name, the secret name, and understanding more that there were people around me who had a secret and people around me who didn't have that secret, who thought they did, but didn't realize that, the inner school contradicts the outer school. That may be part of the reason why I would even have those kind of paranoid scenarios available to me as toys to play with, or tools uh, to run, like programs to run in my brain to see, you know. So maybe the reason why I'm a philosopher, and the reason why I took all those kind of questions like, hey, how do you know the universe didn't just start at the moment when I clicked my fingers, um, was partly in this way of like, something's going on that I need to figure out. Maybe that drove me to have the kind of brain that figures shit out. That's bullshit though, because this was happening to all the other kids in the church, and they didn't uh, end up having the same kind of thought patterns as I did. Or maybe they did. Maybe like people watch this video and go, "Yeah, I've had those same paranoid thoughts, and I was an ex-Mormon." We'll see about that. We'll see about that. That's all. That's what I wanted to say. So, good evening, everybody. Peace out and shit.